Good afternoon, all. Thank you for joining us. We'll call the meeting to order, and please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under all, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll move to 1.03, which is approval of the agenda. Before the agenda is approved, I want to let folks know that I am removing item 2.02, which is receipt, review, and possible approval of proposed changes to policy IDD, curriculum design, instruction of students with disabilities. This was for possible action. However, I'm removing it from the agenda this evening as suggested changes have come in, which will require further review. So with that, is there a motion to approve the remaining agenda?
Move to approve the remaining agenda. Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well, and motion passes. Item 1.04 is input from the public. And I know that we have one input from the public, so if there's no other input from the public, we'll move to Katie Nelson.
Hi, I just want to introduce myself. I am the new GM for SFE, which is the food service company. George Sears, which you guys have been working with for the last 2 years, has moved on to Arizona. So I've just started, so I wanted to come and introduce myself and meet you all. And I'm excited to work with you all and get to know you a little bit more. And so if you have any questions, I'm over at Central Kitchen. I would love to sit down and let you pick my brain and vice versa. And yeah, I just want to put my name out there in my face and meet you all.
Thank you very much, Katie.
Yeah, thank you.
Questions from the board? All righty. Any additional public comment? All right, then we are moving right ahead to 2.01, which is receipt, review, and possible approval of guidance on the 5-year capital improvement plan pursuant to NRS 354.5945. This is for possible action. Take it away.
All right, just got quiet. Okay, so this every year around this time, or sometimes a little earlier, but around this time we present to you our proposal for our 5-year capital improvement plan. And the formation of this was a result, obviously, of a lot of the conversations that have been going on in the last 5 to 6 months surrounding AB 519 and the tax rate that has been allocated. So what you'll find on here, and just like, I guess before I go into what's there, just a reminder that while it is a 5-year capital improvement plan, the further away you get from year one, the less sure you are to have those projects be to be there the next year as well. So the FY 24-25, that one, those are projects we are very sure we're going to be working on. In fact, some of them are already, we've been working on them this summer already because they were carryovers from before, or we have bids that have been accepted for them, that kind of thing. So those are projects that that not only have carried over from last year, but some of the other ones you'll see there are also ones that were a big part of the conversation with the AB 519 panel and with kind of our commitments to the county and to our taxpayers for projects that would be a priority moving forward. So we've got some very imminent kind of things we're working on, and then some of those carry through over the course of those years. And then we also have obviously hopeful projects we'll be able to work on in the future, demonstrating those needs and projecting some of those needs as well. So that is, and as far as format goes, it is organized in such a fashion that it's by funding source. So the first part is the pay-as-you-go that we have along with the capital improvement, the tax rate money. The second category is making an assumption that the money we get from the 20-cent allocation from the county, that when we apply for that to get matching grant from that state account, that we would get that. So all of that is, and it's labeled there as assuming a match. And then the other funds are AB 519 for the construction of the new Owyhee School, which is currently still out to bid. And then we have a federal funds category, and those are from grants that have been acquired over the last couple of years, as well as our building and sites fund, the general fund, and the grant that was awarded from the Department of Ed for the Spring Creek High School food science building. So those are all the various funds that we have contributing towards capital improvement projects. It's not all coming from I know the one we talk about most of the time is the pay-as-you-go fund, but there's been a lot of effort over the last few years to try to get funds from elsewhere as well, so we can keep moving forward despite the cessation of revenue that we had there for a little while. Aside from just us putting this together, we did run this through our internal capital improvement committee, and it was signed off on, so to speak. Just recommended to move forward with it, with other thoughts in mind and things for consideration for the future as well. But you know, it's been presented to them, and you know, also considerations were the long or the I can't think of the word right now, the plan or the assessment that was done, sorry, by the I'm just blanking on some stuff right now. By, what was the name, Brooke? MGT, thank you. Golly, I apologize. The MGT facilities assessment that was done. So taking into consideration some of those things. So anyway, that's our document. As far as timeline goes, just as a way of reminder, in early August, there is the County Debt Management Commission meeting. And this item, along with our debt management plan, gets presented at that meeting. So August 23rd, thank you, Jeff. August 23rd is that meeting.
To be determined. They'll let us know. I know there were a couple of the guys. I'll kind of cover that in my report. I have another meeting on there to report on as well.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, I just had a question about the old central office roof replacement. First of all, what do we use old central office for? And I just wondered if we should move that down the list and do the, you know, the grammar kitchen roof replacement first and the HVAC controls for Adobe Middle School first. If this is a prioritized list, maybe we look at those kinds of things first for the students and then look at the roof replacement for central. But if we're going to have a building fall down because of the roof, we don't want that to happen either. So just asking for clarification.
Yeah, so that building is largely unusable right now because of the condition that the roof is in. And so we would like to be able to use it. There have been discussions about potentially, you know, certain department from here could be housed over there. There could be more room for that. The SRO is having more of an actual facility to house their offices out of. So there's been talks about that. Well, as you said, you know, or as you noticed, I'm sure it's not listed for this year. It's for farther out. And so, yeah, we could, you know, it's just demonstrating it's a future potential project and certainly could be rearranged for a later year. But yeah, that's a project that yeah, not only would we like to be able to make use of that space because we're just taking up real estate right now, but kind of as you started to allude to, the longer that goes unattended and kind of gets worse, deteriorates, could become a much more significant issue for that building. So, Matt, is there anything you want to add to that building? You don't have to necessarily, but if you feel like you have something else to add.
Yeah, the roof's completely failed. I mean, it just, in the wintertime, water's just pouring in there. So I think what we're more worried about is having to do a lot more work to that building if we didn't do a roof replacement, right? So are we gonna tear down a building and how much is that gonna cost us and stuff like that? So that was the thought.
Thank you.
So CJ, I apologize. Is this a prioritized list? And if so, why is that one prioritized to Teresa's point, above at least 16, which would occur 4 years from now instead of 5.
I think to Matt's point that it feels like it's,
So should we move it from 5 years up to 4 years?
sorry, which one are we talking about?
So the old roof is 15 and it's planned for 28, 29. 16 is the grammar kitchen roof,
Oh,
but that
gotcha.
one's 27, 28.
I would not say that they're listed in a priority order because you'll notice that
If they're
spring
not
behind
priority. then
mechanical upgrade is all the way out at 27, 28, and it's listed before that. So,
Right.
Cassie, do you have a comment on how they were ordered?
We also took into consideration if that AB 519 match was available, we tried to put in the projects that would cost more later because then we were able to pull in from the match rather than using our own funds.
Okay.
So we were taking another cost as well.
Thank
So there is some prioritization or at least some thought on where they're at, not just a timeline.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
think certain projects, just by nature of being less expensive, can be worked on with the funds that we have, whereas the larger, more expensive ones will require those matching funds, and we're hoping that we'll be able to get those.
Okay, thank you. Additional comments or questions from the board? CJ, I see that number 10 is geothermal upgrade. I know that when we have the update, geothermal is also on there. But while we're here, that there's a contract that's out or at some point going to come before this board in a future meeting, correct?
Yeah, we can anticipate to see something at a future meeting. Just, we'll give a lot more information there at that meeting, but geothermal is a very valuable resource and it's non-functional right now. It has been for, at least, 7 years, something like that, 5, 6, 7 years. And so we've come across the possibility of being able to get it back up and running again through partnership with other entity as well as significant federal energy incentive grants. And so we're in the process of trying to find out which of our current users are interested in still being involved in that, or if they do not want to be. And then once we have kind of an arrangement figured out, then we can move forward with trying to figure out the cost of the project and whose contributions would be what, et cetera. So a lot of kind of exploring and trying to figure out what the landscape of it is right now.
Okay, thank
So
you.
there's potential there would be other funds coming in from other sources
Yep.
to aid in that project.
Yes, because at its, the project in and of itself, we certainly would not be. I mean, we have the money to be able to do it, but it would essentially, it would drain a good amount of what we have in our reserves right now. And so that's why it hasn't, it's been a conversation that's kind of popped up here and there over the last few years. But now that there's a possibility of partnering with others, it makes it a little more of a reality. So, yeah, just starting to think of how we can prepare for that.
Great, thank you. How would the board like to proceed? As this is an action item.
I move to approve the 5-year capital improvement plan pursuant to NRS 354.5945.
Second.
All righty, thank you very much. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. 2.02 has been removed from the agenda, so 2.03 is receipt of facilities and construction update. This is a non-action item. Mr. Stolke. At your convenience.
Oh,
We have the report.
I guess, do you have any questions or? So I'll go over the projects basically. So, Carlin fire alarm upgrade. It's, moving forward, pretty good. It's probably, I think I put 25%. It's probably a little bit more now. And, so Quantum and fire engineering are out there and doing really good work. Spring Creek entrance, regrading and repave. They paved today. They'll probably wrap up the end of this week, next week. And that's turned out really well. Food science project, they've started site grading in the back. They've got the pads for the modulars done. Most of sewer, water, electrical all ran over there. So moving forward on that. And so, and then job walk for the Waihi project was, wasn't mandatory, but we're kind of hoping we'd get a little bit more, what's the best way to, more buy-in or more, we just got a handful of contractors, so, and just one general contractor, so. So that's why we kind of decided to push it out, a couple more weeks just to see if we could reach out to a few more contractors and see if anybody was interested.
Terrific. Thank you. Comments or questions from the board?
Will these be done before school starts, like the Carlin fire alarm upgrade?
Yes, Carlin fire alarm will be done. Like I said, the Spring Creek entrance will be done here in probably a week, so.
In the junior high building? Go high?
Oh, yeah, sorry, skip that one. Yeah, that's moving forward. That'll probably, they're about 50% done over there, so they'll be wrapping up here in a little bit, so.
With the pads and the sewer and so forth for the modulars out at Spring Creek High School, any chance those modulars will be ready for this school year?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so they still probably, they've got to pour pads out there. They're breaking down the trailers at the elementary school right now. And I doubt they would, they might be moved over by about school time, but then they have to be remodeled and everything like that, so.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else from the board?
I'm kind of a left field one, just, and hopefully you have it. If you don't, it's not a big deal, but the safety upgrades that we were doing, so like key cards, those types of things, is there any update, or we've reached where we're going to be this year?
They're still moving forward. I've kind of been out of loop on that one. So
Okay.
I was trying to get up to speed with Steven today on that. So I believe South Side is pretty much complete over there. And then they're got a little bit more work to do at Spring Creek Middle and Spring Creek High. And then I think they're going to go to the Elko High School next. So, but yeah, they're just moving forward. Like everybody, they're having trouble with manpower, but they got a guy to move to Elko.
Okay.
So that's definitely helped out the contractors.
I appreciate it. Yeah, sorry, that was out of left field, but it was just, if
No.
you got it, cool.
Steven was
That's good
handling that
enough,
one,
yeah.
so I was trying to get up to speed today on that, so.
I appreciate it. Just a little update. Thank you.
All righty. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Move on to 2.04, receipt of quarterly update reports. Mrs. Stolke. I'll have you come up first for the finance report or for finance department. Or we can have Ms. Cox go first, whichever you'd prefer.
I kind of combined it all together.
Okay.
But I just wanted to give an introduction, so let me just share my screen. Okay, sorry. So as you know, Megan just started July 1st, and I'm so excited to have her. She's been wonderful so far and is picking up everything. I'll let you give a little background and introduce yourself if you want to. Okay.
Hi, it's great to be back. I was with Elko, the school district 2 years, about a year ago. I taught at Spring Creek and Battleborn. And then I took a year sabbatical, I don't really know. And now this position came open and I'm fortunate enough to have it. And I look forward to working with you.
So I'll just give, since Megan's just kind of starting, she's kind of been thrown in. We're closing out the fiscal year right now for a lot of the grants and then still trying to apply. And as you know, I've been doing a couple roles over the last few months, so we were behind. The revenues for the grant department at the end of FY24 were about $90 million. That did include the AB 519 Waihi project. We did work with Ide Bailey and they were on site about a month ago to complete our single audit. That's nearly done. We're just waiting for our final expenditures to hit so we can finish our CFA and then they can start pulling samples. We did receive our annual risk assessment from NDE. We still are at a medium risk, but last year I created a policy and procedure book, which helped out a lot. And right now we're just submitting a few more samples so that way they can remove some of the points that they scored us on. So we're hoping that we can get to a low risk entity once I get all the samples submitted. Going forward, NDE we did not receive federal allocations to the state in time. So when we were applying for our title programs, we were using last year's allocations. So we submitted the grants and they were approved and then NDE came back and they had a significant reduction in title funding. So now we're having to go back through our grants and cut probably I'd say about 18% from each funding source, which for some of them, they're quite detrimental, like our 1003A grant that we were using for the Student Center Education Impact for our Learner Performers Framework. We were receiving about 400,000, which covered that program that we implemented. And now in order for the state, we have a hold harmless agreement with Title I. So in order for them to keep up with the hold harmless agreement with Title I, they have to pull from our 1003A grant. So now we're unsure how we're going to fund that project going forward. So we're still kind of waiting, but more bad news. We do have our COPS 24 application, which is pending. So you did ask about the school safety project. The reason why those 3 schools were a priority is because we've had 3 rounds of funding, the third one being pending. Our first round of funding was Spring Creek Elementary, Southside, and Spring Creek High School. So we had to get those projects completed before that funding source ended. And then they can start working on the remainder of the schools. In the COPS 24 application, we applied for the keyless door. So we were hoping to use some of the money from Nevada Gold to help supplement that, but it just became too expensive over time as the project with everything, it's just increasing. So we've been putting the school telecommunication systems on priority, and then we've applied for the keyless entry. We also did today receive the remaining $500,000 from Nevada Gold today. They dropped that off, so we appreciate them. And I think we'll hear about the COPS 24 grant in October. So our office is also trying to close out the year, and we did Carolyn Hines retired last month. So we did replace her with Carrie Barrett for accounts payable. So we've been training her, I've been training myself. We have a couple new partnerships. So our ERP system is Alio or Link, and we've had it for many years, but we haven't been using it to its full capacity. And many of us don't know all of the processes that it can do, whether it's reconciling itself, payroll processes. So I reached out and I actually found the original architect for the ERP system who no longer works, and he's been providing our office training twice a week. So far we've been able to streamline a lot of our processes, whether it's budget entry, payroll, reporting. So that's been wonderful. We've also, since this is my first time and I'm kind of getting thrown into the year-end close, we're working with Ide Bailey, but it's a different department than our auditors, just so they can keep independence. But they are working with us to create a year-end checklist that our department can use after this year independently, and then documenting all the procedures and to close out the fiscal year. So that way we won't need additional assistance in the future. And just in case one of us leaves, then we'll know how to train the next person. Our audit is scheduled for September 3rd through the 13th. So Ide Bailey will be on site during that time. Let's see, August 7th, we received a request to go in front of the Committee of Local Government Finance. As you know, our audit was late last year, and CJ and Mr. Jenkins had to go to Carson City and explain that. So we're just giving an update. I do believe that we've implemented enough just within the last few months to actually show that we're moving forward and we have the capacity and the ability to maintain control over that office. So I think we're going to be fine there. We've been looking at the budget just because, as you know, with the title cut grant or the grant cuts, we are also experiencing cuts all over and prices are going up. So we're slowly going to be working through each function and department to determine, just look at a budget analysis, see what we've been doing, where we can cut, and slowly move throughout the year. We've also had insurance has been a topic, and we did increase the deductibles, but I'm meeting with Trinity at LP monthly to get training and then also just to brainstorm with her how we can slowly just increase or other ideas, how we can get caught up and back on track so we're not in a deficit within our insurance fund. Like I said, with the budget analysis, the one thing that we saw, the first thing I saw was overtime. So we took a look at custodial overtime over the last few years. And it's hard, we're still in that time frame where COVID is in there. So we're not receiving the more accurate numbers, but in this case, it kind of helps us out to see the trend. You can see that in FY19 to 21, I've highlighted, that's about the time where COVID struck. So you can see that our overtime increased in 19 and then in 20, when we were having to go in and fog buildings and clean classrooms and the custodians were having to do additional work. FY22, we actually decreased in the amount of overtime, but then 23, we had a 50% increase from the prior year. And then FY24, we saw a 43% increase just from the prior year. So we did freeze overtime immediately, and we're now trying to look at ways that we can mitigate that situation, whether it be scheduling or what other options we have so we can lower that cost. So we're going to continue to do that through every department and try to get back on track. We've had a lot of turnover in central office, so we kind of need to just sit down and look back and see what's been going on. This is just the general fund estimate. So the first column there are our audited financials from the last year. So you can see we had the ending fund balance. We haven't had really too much of a drastic change. We did receive more revenue there, about 9 million. Can't see this far. Our expenditures were about the same, but where we did increase was our transfers out. And a lot of that had to do because we had about an $800,000 cut in our at-risk weighted funds because of our audited enrollment. So we did have to budget for additional transfers into the general fund. So our total expenditures are a little bit higher, but we've maintained pretty much the same level. And then instead of a deficit fund balance as we saw last year, I'm hoping that we can add about 5.2 million into the fund at the end of this year. But I did, when I created the budget for FY25, in that short amount of time where I did think that, I did tell you guys that I thought the fund balance was completely overstated, which is a fact because I think I was at like 20 million, so 22 million. So I do have it at 15 million, which is more of an accurate number. And that's it.
Comments or questions from the board?
Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Cassie.
you're
Appreciate it.
trying to find ways to work around things.
I just want to say in just a couple more words, I really do mirror that, but this is a huge monster and you're doing fantastic work
Thank you.
and I super appreciate it. And so thank you for all this and explaining it and then trying to find other things and spending the time. And I mean that wholeheartedly because this monster is ginormous. And so it sounds like we're on the right track. We have the right person there.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Cassie. All righty, we'll now move to our consent agenda 3.01. This is an action item. There are 3 policies in here. Policy JBA, which has some statutory changes to it. Policy DHC and FFCB. FFCB is a newer policy, in fact, a new policy, but deal with bidding. Is there a motion from the board?
Move to approve the consent
Second.
agenda.
Perfect. Moved and seconded before it's out of the mouth. All right. All in favor, or sorry, any discussion or other items from the board? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. Mr. Anderson, we'll turn the time over to you for the superintendent's report.
I would just say my name is misspelled once in the minutes, but other than that, we're good.
All righty, I will ask Miss.
RFF.
And I didn't get the word I out when you were voting, so I.
Oh, okay, all right. There we are.
I was waiting for you, sorry.
But not a big deal. The substance of it is,
Okay,
so.
I'll ask Miss Gray to get that corrected. Okay, thank you very much. CJ, all you.
All right, thank you. I was gonna say it feels like it's been a minute, but it has. It was a month ago we last met, so really good to see you all again. I mostly just wanted to fill you in on last week. Kayla did get a post out there on Facebook about the activities, and I sent the group of you a scan of, at least I thought I did. Yeah, I did. Of the kind of the topics and the purpose of going to Washington DC last week. So I was able to be one of 4 superintendents from our state, and we were able to meet with almost all of our folks, all of our legislators in person. Both of our senators, Rosen and Cortez Masto, we met personally with, and we also met with Congressman Horsford and Congresswoman Lee and Titus. Mark Amadei Mr. Amadei, sorry, was unavailable. He was doing his job at the time, and so we couldn't get to see him personally. But really good conversations, and just a recap of the purpose of that visit is, and this is something that happens every year. And I've been appointed to take part in it every year. But I do want to make sure I report back on what we learned and talked about. But the purpose of the conference is to advocate with our federal legislators on what they can do to help support our schools. Sometimes just for folks who aren't like super involved in all the decision making and how laws and rules and policies and things like that get made at school levels. It's easy to just say, oh, that's the state. And for the people at the state say, oh, that's the feds. Like it's easy to pass the buck that way. But the more I'm involved and see these things, there are certain things that the federal government absolutely can directly influence. And there are other things that they have nothing to do with. It's all the state. And then there's things that neither of them have anything to do with, and it's all you guys here. Like we all have our roles that we play. And so the purpose of this conference was the first day we got together and we talked about what things were relevant, because when you meet with a senator or a congressman or woman, your time is remarkably limited. And so there's not a whole lot of getting to know you kind of thing. It's like it's boom, hello, thank you for all your service. Here's where you can help us. And they want to know exact things they need to know right there and then. And they have their legislative assistant with them. And then they try to do what they can to support us. And so the first day was kind of here's how you got to make sure you do it. And then here are the things that we as an organization, that organization being AASA, which is the National Association for School Superintendents. Here are the things that the topics that we want to in a united manner go to our legislators and talk to them about. And so I'm just going to kind of quickly touch through those. The FY25 appropriations from the federal government are not looking good for schools in general. They're talking about a significant reduction, somewhere in the neighborhood of up to about a 14% cut in federal for our schools, which for context would take us back to I believe it was just below FY2011 spending. So we'd be going backwards about 15 or 13 years, whatever that, or 14. Never do math live, right? It's ridiculous though, going back 14 years in time, funding levels. So that would be really bad. And some of the, Cassie just got finished talking to us about cuts in title spending. The two of the areas that would hit the most are Title I and Title II, which, as we know, are some of our most at-risk and highest need students. The needs don't disappear when they take the money away. And so you can already go ahead and imagine whose backs that would fall on. And so that was something we very much advocated for, was to stop that bleeding as much as possible. And when they're making cuts, and it sounds like it's not just towards education. I think many of the federal budgets sound like they're going to be cut, but that would be a massive amount. So asking for them to advocate against that happening. Next, and this is something we continue to hammer on every year, but that is to fully fund IDEA. That's the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. When it was put into place, the intention was for the federal government to fund that at 40%. And still many years later, they are at about 13 or 14%. And so again, we already know when we don't get enough funding from that side, and when the state gives us whatever they give us and it's a shortfall, that comes out of our general fund. And so every year that's several $1 million that come out of our general fund to make sure that our students who have IEPs have all the services provided that they need. And just because the money isn't there doesn't mean we can stop providing services. So nor would we want to. It's our honor and obligation to serve those students and make sure they have everything they need to have equitable access to education. But if it doesn't come from the sources it's supposed to come from, it ends up being taken from our general fund. So asking them to continue to fund that more than they have been. We all vehemently opposed the implementation of school vouchers, not only in our own state, but across the country. We believe school vouchers are absolutely detrimental to the state of public education. And furthermore, that it only, how do I say this? The people that, just like Title I reductions would hurt most those students who need it most, that is what school vouchers would end up doing. It would come at a cost very heavily to our students who most need it, because those students are not the ones that are going to be able to take advantage of the vouchers. It'll be people who already have more capability to take advantage of those. So just making sure we oppose those in united fashion. There were several, actually, before I go to that one, spoke in support of something called the Loan Forgiveness for Educators Act. There are already teacher loan forgiveness programs out there, but they're pretty difficult to take advantage of. And so what at first sounds like a great incentive for someone to get a degree in education ends up being a little bit of a challenge to even qualify for, and takes a long time to kind of even get the money. And so it ends up being something that's not really an incentive. So there is a new act that would kind of expands that and works out some of those kinks. And so we spoke in favor of that, as we know that we need to continue to elevate the profession of a teacher, and do anything we can to remove barriers and incentivize folks, good folks, to go into the profession. I think we're almost there. There were several, and I'm not going to go through each one in detail, but there were several that had to do with technology in schools. So there was one called COSA, which is Kids Online Safety Act. Another one called COPPA, which is Children and Teens Online Privacy Protection Act. And then another one called Kids Off Social Media, COSM. I don't know if they say that or not, but as long as I was saying the acronyms. And all of these, obviously, you can tell from the name of the act, they're all well intended to make sure that our students are able to, because we can't just like not have technology in school, but to do it in a manner that is safe, that also protects people. People's privacy, people's information, et cetera. The way they were written had multiple elements that would kind of prohibit school staff from being able to really take advantage of programs, could allow parents to totally opt their kids out of essentially an entire curriculum, therefore kind of rendering a teacher unable to really track student progress and make it difficult to manage a program. And so there were elements that were just problematic, not like as a whole, these seem like well-intended things, but as we know, sometimes well-intended things have unintended consequences. So giving them our perspective as school leaders on how we can, not throw them out entirely, but how can we make sure we have these be effective? These were actually one of these anyway, was a really great example of why this conference is important, because when I arrived there on Monday, there was a specific one of these that was, in our terms, unacceptable. We could not support it in the way it was written. And then after our advocacy all day on Wednesday, by the time we got there Thursday morning, the writers of that bill or act, after hearing from so many legislators who heard from so many superintendents, said, yeah, we understand now what you're saying. We'd be happy to change this language. And by the time we met Thursday morning, it was already changed and in an acceptable format that would help our schools. And so without the advocacy, without enough senators and congressmen and women hearing that stuff, it doesn't happen. So really, really good that we were able to make a visible change in just the couple of days we were there. And we know they heard the other things. So really good opportunity there. And then the last thing, we made sure to absolutely ask for their continued support on is E-rate. We know that our ability to have functioning internet and technology infrastructure in our district comes at the hands, and at least in part by E-rate. So significantly subsidizes how much it costs for us to continually update our internet and our infrastructure from a technology standpoint. So we thanked them for providing that for us and asked for their continued support. And they all agreed that was pretty important for our rural Nevadans and really kids all over the country. So it's kind of a recap. And like I said, I sent you all those talking points. And that was what we did. And it was a great experience. And hustled back. Here I am.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Comments or questions from the board? Dr. Byers.
The only question I have is the technology / cell phone policy. Are we still progressing with that? Are we still mulling it over? Where are we at with that?
Yeah, we're thinking about it, talking about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you saying like
I would love to see it.
banning cell phones entirely? Is that what we're getting at?
I mean, that would be great, but we have to have a policy and we have to discuss it.
We received an email from Mr. Sawyer today that is in progress.
So, yeah, just seeing where it was.
Yeah,
So.
and I would say also that while we are able to move forward, obviously, whenever we want to on something like that, it's also my understanding, I've just been hearing rumblings that it's probably a topic that's going to show up at the state level in this upcoming legislative session.
Yes.
I know that Clark County School District piloted with a number of schools this year using what they call it, there's Fair-Day bags or
Fair-Day
something.
bags.
Yeah, okay. Using these little bags that essentially nullify the signal or whatever for a cell phone. So piloting ways to make it useful, but it's a trend that's showing up around the country because I mean, even just a few years ago, it was unheard of to even bring it up. Enough data, so to speak, is out on cell phone usage in schools that there's a lot of movement happening across the country for that. So yeah, we're definitely still talking about it, considering it. Yes.
Thanks for the update.
Mm-hmm.
On that topic, I hear what you're saying as far as there may be something at the state level, knowing that the legislature sometimes moves exceedingly fast and all of a sudden we're caught unawares as citizens that the legislature just did something, and other times things don't get passed until June 3rd. I think it would be good if we could have a policy come before the board sooner than later so that we could look into it, even if I don't want to waste the board's time, of course, but even if it's only in effect for 6 months before it has to be changed or even overridden, I think that would give us something for the board to at least consider. Just throwing my 2 cents out. Anything else from the board?
I would say it is worth mentioning that the Fair-Day bags are not cheap. So
Yes, you're absolutely right.
That would come with an initial cost that I would imagine would be in hundreds of thousands of dollars kind of investment to make that happen.
Correct. Yeah, I looked into it briefly and I want to say it was about $170,000. So just acknowledging that, but
Sure.
having a policy of something to look at would be good.
Correct.
Okay, anything else from the board?
I just think it's great that you and other rural superintendents from Nevada are in front of our legislators. That makes a huge difference. So I think that's great for us in our district and it's great for the state of Nevada. So thank you.
And CJ, I know that in Nevada, particularly in our area, school choice is important. As voucher programs continue to be discussed, it may be prudent to look at if you mentioned something along the lines of students that can least afford it are going to be, hurt more. Finding a way to proportionately gear that towards income may be a discussion to start having if it's not already being had. Because at some point, I think we're going to see more and more push for school choice. And I think many on the board understand and acknowledge school choice. But we want to try to, control the discussion and the narrative as much as we can. So we don't want those, those in Title I or Title II or whatnot to be even more put into a disadvantage. So if we can find ways to say, okay, we hear what you're saying, here's where it's going to impact. So just throwing that out there. Thank you very much, CJ, for your time. If there's nothing else, then we will move on to board matters. 5.01, items from the board members. Non-action item. Mr. Durham, do you want to start at that end?
Sure. I'll start with Debt Management Commission. I attended a Debt Management Commission meeting on Thursday, June 20th. It was a special meeting regarding some funding for new trucks for the West Wendover Recreation District, which passed unanimously. We also set for the next meeting, that's going to be Friday, August 23rd, time to be determined. I'll let you know in our next meeting as soon as I find out on that. I know we're waiting on some feedback on a couple of the members and what time would be best for them to attend. What else did I have? Regarding NASB, there was a virtual meeting on the 20th of June. Unfortunately, because of work, I wasn't able to attend, but I do have the minutes from the meeting that I've reviewed. Wasn't a whole lot to add to it, but if you'd like to add anything, as staff rep, we could. But they did talk about NASB nominations that we're working on and getting those in. So I'm excited to see some of the progress we've made and how we represent Elko County well, in that discussion. So they also did a financial report. Everything's in order. And the next joint meeting will be September 6th here in Elko. And then September 7th is a professional development opportunity. And there was some discussion in there too, but it looks like it's going to be some former trustee Wines is going to have some involvement with that. And well, I'll just leave that to the announcement when that comes out, but we'll throw that out there as a little tease for you. I believe that's everything I have regarding that. Anything else would be on the next agenda item.
Yeah. So just a big encouragement to set aside September 6th and 7th because we're going to have everybody here. So let's represent well.
Thank you. Additional board comments?
I have something I want to bring up. And I had notes taken on it, and do I have them? No, I forgot them. So I will, if it's okay, I can pass my notes along to like Cassie and she can get them out. What I'd like to do, if the rest of you are in agreement, speaking of Ira, when he made the suggestion of having a student representative at our meetings, which I think we've all enjoyed having, I would like to see us expand that. And I was reading, this is an article from a school board journal called Superintendent Student Voice Council. And this is in Washington at one of the school districts. And they've made like this whole program, and I won't go into too many details because it's in my notes. But they have a student voice council that leads into a lead fellow program, which goes to student voice circles. And they're actually working on, the students now are working on some policies. And so I think what it does is it just takes what we're doing and expands it so that more students have an opportunity to participate. And I think, especially with this being a legislative year, I just think there are a lot of benefits to it. And I really like, I'm not saying we have to copy this district, although I think it's pretty good. But I really like the movement they've made with that. But I don't want to go too far forward if the rest of you are like, Susan, that's just a silly idea. Let's not do that. I just think it would be really well worth our time to do that. And it brings them all together. Like they'd meet with you, they'd meet with us, they meet with community members. I just think it'd be really good to get the students involved more than one that sits at a meeting and some participate more than others. I think it'd get a whole bigger group together. And I like that excites me. I think that's exciting to get to know more students and have that. So I will pursue it more if you want me to and send my notes out. I have several articles that they have done more than just one board member. There's actually, he's the state representative, but he does, you know how you do your wrap up of a board meeting? He does that, but it's a student doing it of what the students have done. And I just thought, oh, that's a good idea too. So there's just some really good ideas in there. So I'd be happy to send out my notes to all of you and pursue like how because they had over 200 applicants, and this is Yakima School District. So we may or may not have 200 applicants, but I don't know like what their application looks like, that kind of thing. I'd be happy to call them and ask, just so we have a feel for that, or if you're okay with that. I don't know. I don't know if that has to be a vote or.
I'd certainly be interested. That was a subject that we covered when I was at the NSBA conference in New Orleans in April. And I had mentioned like some of the additional duties that we had given the student board member. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of things we could do there that would be beneficial.
They actually brought up in one of the articles or sites that I was on that like NASB could do some training, because some of them send them to some training, just like we go to. And they said sometimes their state board will do some of the training, and that could be something that Rick could be involved in possibly. And these are all just possibilities, but I like them.
Great. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Susan. If you can send the notes out to Cassie, she'll then distribute them. And perhaps we can put that on to an agenda in August.
Okay.
And depending on what the recommendation is, we can either make that just a discussion item or we can make that an action item.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, Ms. New?
No.
All righty. Dr. Byers? All righty. Going down this side, ladies, anything from you all? All right. Okay, a couple of quick things then out of my mouth, and I'll try to make this fast. Elko Lions Club met today, and with about 24-hour notice, I asked CJ Anderson, our superintendent, to attend. He attended and presented quite well, so I appreciate what he was able to do. We were able to talk to a number of business folks in the club and had quite a few, I think, relevant questions that were handled quite well. So thank you for representing the district well. Policy BCB is the policy that deals with our board chair, the clerk, the appointment to the Debt Management Commission, the NASB director. I talked previously about potentially making that a 2-year term instead of a 1-year term so that we didn't have such quick turnover. I had anticipated having that ready for this meeting. I apologize. I hopefully will have it ready by the August 6th meeting, and we will go from there. Brooke, Susan, and I met together with Mr. Anderson in regards to the Classical Academy Charter School application and the district's response to that. So that has been discussed, and then there'll be a draft coming out CJ will send it back out to the three of us. We'll make sure things look good. Say, yep, it's good to go. And then it'll be sent out to the rest of the board for the board's review prior to it being submitted on a formal basis. Correct? Okay, great. I want to make sure I didn't misspeak. And then Teresa, Cassie Gray, and I will work on the board governance manual over the next 6 weeks so that we have something hopefully before this board by the second meeting in August, which I believe is the 20th. So that way we can review it and know what's kind of this board has their input prior to the NASB conference on the weekend of September 6 and 7, because we're already planning things for this board to do on that. So be aware of that. And I think that's all I had for those. Uh-oh.
On the governance manual, if we have ideas on things we'd like to see in that, can we forward that information to you then?
Please do.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. Go ahead and send it to Cassie, and then Cassie can loop Teresa and I in. It's a kind of a live document right now. The reason I haven't opened it up to the entire board is just because let's kind of get a framework that I think will work well. And then, yeah, the intention would be that the rest of the board would be able to have their input as well. But if you already know something now, please go ahead and send it in. Better to get it in now than have to make changes afterwards. So appreciate it. All right, then we will move to 5.02, the NASB award nominations discussion. This is a non-action item. The intent was for us to have our nominations ready for this meeting. I know that we had, Jeff had emailed a couple into, or his homework, as he said, into Cassie. Susan had asked me earlier this meeting if we, what to do with hers. I asked her also to send it into Cassie. And if anybody else has things to prepare or to present, let's put it into Cassie. Yes, we're going to need to decide which nominations to submit for those that we have more nominees than we do for all of the applications or all the positions that we have for that, though it's not relevant to the operations of the district. And so electronically or other means, we'll go ahead and just say, yes, we think that these people should be the nominees, and not, necessarily pick apart nominations here in an open meeting. Because I think, one, that's just does a disservice to the 1,000 employees we already have, and two, it is not necessarily the best use of our time or the public's time. With that, Jeff, you said you had something to add into that?
No, not really. I just was referring to my homework.
Cool. Okay. Any other thoughts on that? All righty then. Okay, 6.01 is approval of the accounts payable. This is for possible action.
Move to approve the accounts payable.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded by Dr. Byers, seconded by Jeff. Okay.
And while you're typing, I will disclose that I have a family member who works for Wells Rural Electric, but I will not be abstaining.
Okay.
Have to disclose that I have a family member that works for Lone Wolf, so I will be abstaining from voting.
And I have to disclose that I have a family member who works for Wells Rural Electric, and I also have a family member who works for Ruby Mountain Rock and Ready Mix. So I will have to abstain from voting.
All right, so abstentions by Ms. Ballard and Ms. Stanfield, disclosure by Ms. Dastrup. Anything further? We still have quorum. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you very much. 7.01 is the final opportunity for input from the public. And I realize I failed to read the whole admonition last time. I think we're all good. We don't need to go back through it. It's there if you need it. And Ms. Nelson obviously didn't take her more than 3 minutes. So I think we're good. All right, then we will stand in adjournment until August 6th, unless some emergency happens in between. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of this hot summer, and we'll see you in a few weeks, 3 weeks exactly. Bye now.